Hello, everybody. This is Elizabeth Clare Brewington with Brightside Global Trade TV, and I have Elton Brewington as well. And I'd like to warmly welcome Kate Nelson. She's a writer and a historian living in Lincoln, Massachusetts. She has written about the Civil War, U.S. Western history, and American culture for the New York Times, the Washington Post, Smithsonian Magazine, and the Atlantic. Nelson earned her BA in History and Literature from Howard University and her PhD in American Studies from the American University of Iowa. Nelson is also the author and of the Three-Crowned Covered War, a finalist for Pulitzer Prize, Ruined Nations, and Trembling Earth. And this book is just fascinating. It's almost like a whole history trip to the Yellowstone. Thank you for writing this book. And we're in the middle of war times. Last year for the Women Business Empowerment, we focused on victims of domestic violence, human trafficking, child abuse. We went through that. But this year we felt the war was something we wanted to talk about. And so thank you for writing this book. And I'll give you 5 to 7 minutes. If you need a little longer, that's fine. And then we'll do a Q&A.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, so Saving Yellowstone is the story of the first scientific expedition to Yellowstone in 1871, which led to the signing of the Yellowstone Act just a couple months later in 1872, which created the first national park in the world. And this really interested me because, back in 2018, I was doing some research for another project, ran across the survey, realized it was coming up on its 150th anniversary, and that we were also coming up on the 150th anniversary of the Yellowstone Act and the creation of this first national park. And I think as historians, we always, as you were saying in your introduction, there are all kinds of things that propel us to think about important moments in the past and important developments in America at this moment. And I became interested, this anniversary is sort of suggesting that we look at Yellowstone again and rethink it and imagine, what it was like to be there then and why it became so significant to the American people then and why it's significant to us now. I think the pandemic has created a really interesting kind of push toward exploring our, the nation within national borders because international travel has been so difficult. And so Yellowstone has broken all of its visitation records in the past 2 years because people want to go see. It's been on their bucket list. They want to go see this amazing natural wonder with its waterfalls and its amazing Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, and then these geothermal regions, which are the largest in the world. And it really was the geothermal regions that captivated Ferdinand Hayden, who led the Yellowstone expedition, and he is one of 3 protagonists in the book. And it was really interesting for me to see in researching the book how this amazing moment came about really because of 3 charismatic individuals. Hayden, who was a scientist and an explorer, he wanted to build his reputation on Yellowstone and kind of figure out what was going on there with the caldera, what it could tell us about the Earth's geohistory. And then Jay Cook, who was an investment banker from Philadelphia, who was financing the Northern Pacific Railroad and wanted its tracks to go just north of Yellowstone, and he wanted to bring tourists there. So he was very interested in Hayden's expedition. What he didn't anticipate was resistance in the field from Sitting Bull, who is the 3rd protagonist in the book, who was defending his homelands, which stretched from the Missouri River to the Yellowstone Basin. And he did not want any white settlers coming through. He certainly did not want white tourists coming on the railroad to visit Yellowstone. And this was really a moment where Sitting Bull began to assert himself, and the Lakota people began a series of conflicts with the US government that led to the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. So it's this really interesting moment. And I was also kind of driven by the question of, why in the middle of Reconstruction, which is a time in American history, we really focus more on the South and bringing the former Confederate states back into the Union. Why at this moment would the US Congress give this scientist $40,000, which at that time was an incredible amount of money, to go and explore this region that hadn't really been mapped yet, that nobody really knew about. There were all these rumors coming from Yellowstone, but nobody knew what it was. So that was a driving question. Like, why in this moment did Americans want to know about Yellowstone? Why did they want to understand it? And then why did they want to preserve it? And I wrote the bulk of the book during the pandemic in my own living room. So that is an interesting experience. I know Sunita was just talking about the pandemic experience and how it drives book creation. And on the one hand, it was terrible not to be able to go to Yellowstone while I was writing the book, because as an environmental historian, I like to be in place and to see everything around me and understand the landscape of history. But on the other hand, it was really nice to be able to take myself to Yellowstone kind of in my own imagination, and to kind of imagine what it would be like then for readers of the book later to also kind of travel along with Hayden, and then also move with Sitting Bull through his homelands, and experience this sort of on the ground, this historical moment. So I will stop there. I've probably taken up more than my allotted time. So.
That's all right. Well, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Kate, this is an enormous, Megan, I guess, this is an enormous book task. I mean, and you're a woman to take this on with such strategy and dynamics. I mean, I could feel the passion for your need to tell the story. And I mean, because you identify the protagonists and the actuarials are the people who are involved with great clarity. And of course, we realized that this was an important point and moment in American history. And so many players were in place to articulate, what America would be. I mean, especially after Reconstruction, especially after the Civil War. And now to take on, I mean, I commend you. Your Harvard degree does you special recognition for such a great task. And so, of course, now the readers and where you speak and how you share your story is an important one. And I'd like just to ask the question, is there something particular that you want your readers to find out? Because there's power in the reading and there's power in understanding where we've come from. And so I just asked you that question. What is the purpose and the significance for the book? And what do you want the readers to take away as an understanding element?
Well, that's a great question. And what I think I'd like readers to come away with, I think I'd like them to come away with two things. One, kind of understanding Yellowstone in a new way, if they've been there before, or even if they haven't been, to kind of see it in the fullness of its history. Usually we talk about our nation's natural spaces just in terms of maybe the history of conservation or the history of tourism, but there's a lot of politics in this book, and the federal government is really extending itself, right, in this moment for something higher, to give people something that benefits them directly, and they don't, benefit from it monetarily. And I also just want them to think that it was a good read, right? That they had been immersed in the past and sort of can understand it on the ground by getting to know these three men who had such investment in this place and really stake their claims to Yellowstone in this moment.
Very good, very good, very good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And that was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So I'm going to bring my next speaker, who is our sponsor, Lisa Baker. And where is she? Can we see you? Okay. Great. I am going to see if I can stop recording. Okay, this computer is doing some funny things. Okay, there we go. Stop share. Perfect.